Today I'm taking this cluttered area of my shop and getting organized with this ultimate garage shop storage solution, with tons of storage space for all my tools and materials. And this built-in workbench area for working on all your projects. And the best part, I've got free plans so you can build this yourself. Okay, so first up, I'm gonna cut down some 2x4s to build the frames for all the shelves. And I like to use a stop block and a miter saw to get repeatable cuts. It makes it go much faster. All right, these first pieces I'm gonna cut down to 52 inches, and these are gonna be for those center frames that make up the workbench and the 2 shelves above it. Now, as far as dimensions go, don't worry about it. I've got a free set of plans that you can download. It's gonna have your cut list, your dimensions, and all the step-by-step instructions you need to make this project.
Starting with the longest pieces, I'll cut down the 2x4s for the shelf frames. And I'll just clamp this little stop block that I made to my workbench. Once I've got the long pieces cut, I'll move the stop block up to cut the middle-sized pieces. And it's the same thing, just clamp, cut, and repeat. This created a huge mess, but my Rockler dust collector and Dust Right floor sweep keeps the shop looking good as I work. Okay, now I'll build those shelf frames that go on either end, and there's 2 sides with 3 levels, so I'll need 6 frames. I like to clamp my pieces before adding screws, and I made sure everything was square before driving in those screws. The big frames are put together the same way, and once I got all 3 built, I could set them up for a quick game of shop dominoes.
Okay, with all of my frames assembled, now I can start attaching those uprights. For those uprights, I'm gonna use a full 8-foot tall 2x4. Now, as you see, I've already painted it black, and that's totally for aesthetic reasons. You can skip that step if you'd like. All right, so I'm guessing a lot of you are building this in your garage, and you're gonna have a stud wall in your garage that you can tie this whole storage shelf directly into. I don't have that. I've got these thin metal walls, so I have to make mine freestanding.
It's hard to find 2x4s that don't have a bit of twist in them, which means those frames will probably have a bit of twist as well. You'll notice that I'm pushing the frames all the way to the floor, which also isn't perfectly straight. Once I've got them squared up, I can drive in 2 more screws to secure it. Where the frames join, I'm overlapping the 2x4 upright, but only attaching it to one side. I need to be able to flip these over in the next step, and it would be pretty cumbersome if all the assemblies were attached. Also, don't worry about how floppy the whole thing looks right now. As I build out each section, the whole structure gets more rigid, and I'm able to pull twisted sections into alignment. Now that I've got the main structure assembled, I cleaned out the area where this will live, and I probably should have done this first, but it still worked out. Next, I'm going to attach the lower frames, and the first thing I did was measure up from the base of the uprights to the point where the base of those frames sits. Then I clamped on a 2x4 scrap, which is going to give me a place to rest those frames while I attach them. I wedged the first 2 lower frames in place, and then checked the uprights for square before attaching the frames permanently. For the backs of the frames, I just drilled in from the insides of the frame at an angle to make sure they were pulling in towards one another. After all those lower frames are in, a quick pull-up test confirms everything is holding together and that I also need to hit the gym.
You're nothing! You're so weak you call yourself a man? Huh?
Okay, now it's time to add those middle shelf frames, and these go in just like the last frames. you can see one of those twisted frames and how I'm able to just pull it straight before driving a screw to hold it.
So installing the frames went really well. Now it's time to start cutting up the plywood and turning these into shelves.
I threw down some foam insulation on my shop floor and started cutting up the sheets of plywood to cover the shelf frames. I clamped on the straightest 2x4 that I own and used this as a guide to make those rip cuts. Anywhere there was a cross cut, I just marked out a line and cut those freehand. I'll go over it in the plans, but you can modify this project to use up only 2 sheets of plywood. Or if you build it the way I did, it takes 4 sheets. For that top shelf, I just use 1/2 inch plywood instead of 3/4 inch plywood to save a little bit of money, and nothing too heavy is gonna go up there. I added a 2x4 to the back of the workbench area, and this gives me a spot to attach the plywood panel. I also added these 2 plywood panels on each end, and these are so I can add some wall control metal pegboard. With the wall control attached in the workbench section, I added panels to each side to close this workbench off from the shelving. And then I added those wall control panels to the ends. I'm adding a hardboard panel to the workbench, which I glued down and added a couple brad nails to hold the panel down while the glue dries. After removing the casters, I added these Husky tool cabinets that's going to give this shop storage some drawer space. I added a power strip and plugged in these RGB LEDs, and I'll just use these for some accent lighting inside the workbench section. And last, I just had to add all my tools, and this project was done. I want to give a huge shout out to Rockler for supporting my channel, and I've got links below for all the Rockler products you've seen in this video. I'm a huge fan of all their stuff, and I know you will be too. I love the way this project turned out, and I'm super stoked to finally have so much storage and organization in my shop.
Don't forget, I've got free PDF plans linked below so you can build this project. And if you like this video, make sure to hit that like button. Also, get subscribed if you want to see even more of my projects. I'll be making some modifications to this as I go along and figure out how it best suits my needs. And I'll post that over on my Instagram @JohnnyBuilds. So make sure to follow me there to catch all of that. Thanks for checking this one out. I'll see you back here next time.